Ed Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
Well, he's been our district attorney for over 10 years. With me now is Steve Wolfson.
Hi, Ed.
It's 10 years. It seems just like time goes by so quickly. But a lot has changed in the last 10 years. And you entered the office actually more than 10 years.
About 10 and a half.
About 10 and a half years ago. You were facing a different world than what you're facing today. What are some of the differences that you look upon?
Well, I think if you look back maybe every 10 or 20 years, the world changes a little, and it affects the justice system, absolutely. When I took office, there were a couple of controversial officer-involved shootings here in Las Vegas that caused the Department of Justice to come in and review how Metro engages its citizens, and use of force policies were reviewed. They also included some review of the district attorney's policies and things. And there's been positive changes. Metro is a fantastic police department here in Las Vegas, one of the most professional police departments in the country. But the justice system as well has had to evolve with the killing of Mr. Floyd a couple of years ago. The community raised up and said, we've got to make some changes. So the justice system has changed over the years, and most of the changes are good.
And as district attorney, what do you look at as the top priority in Clark County?
Well, certainly the top priority has always been and will always be public safety. People want to feel safe in their homes. Right. When their children go to school, when they go to the supermarket, they want to feel safe. So public safety is always a number one priority.
But the challenges today seem so much more in the gray area than what they were 10 years ago. It seems that even when you're talking about protests, when you're talking about people contesting, certain policies, people are a lot more aggressive today, and that becomes a very difficult balance when it comes to, hey, who are we going to prosecute and for what reason?
Well, yes, much of what you said is true, but at the end of the day, prosecutors file charges against people that commit crimes. We target violent and repeat offenders because those are the folks that do the most harm, whether it be a violent crime or whether it be their third or fourth or fifth crime. So that much hasn't really changed. The attitudes towards police and prosecutors has changed quite a bit. A number of liberal prosecutors have been elected in this country. One was just recalled in San Francisco. The Los Angeles district attorney was facing a recall. My policies are quite different than those. I consider myself to be a mainstream prosecutor. I target violent and repeat offenders, but I've also initiated what I call smart reforms. Not just reforms for the sake of doing reforms, but doing smart reforms.
And I want to talk to you about those smart reforms. You have a conviction review kind of, what is it, panel, committee, unit.
Yes.
And what do they look at every conviction, or how does that work?
No. Conviction review units are actually pretty common in most major cities and most major prosecutors' offices. What we do is we review claims of innocence when new information comes about. The most common form is DNA. Oftentimes people were convicted 20, 30 years ago, and then DNA is discovered, and it will exonerate that person. So if somebody has claimed their innocence from the beginning, and new information comes forward, we will examine the case, and if we believe that there was a wrongful conviction, we will cause that conviction to be vacated.
Does that get instituted by your office or by Metro?
It can be instituted by the petitioner himself, the person who's in prison, their lawyer, if we are made aware of it. So it can be instituted by any one of a number of means. But we have a protocol. We have criteria that must be met. But it is the first of its kind in Nevada, the Conviction Review Unit.
Have you had any successes?
We have. We determined that a gentleman by the name of DeMarlo Berry, who had spent a little over 20 years in prison, we believe did not commit the crime, so we caused his conviction to be vacated and him to be released about 2 years ago. We've also reviewed a couple of others where we've made some concessions and caused people to be released if we felt they were wrongly convicted.
Yeah. Created Hope for Second Chance. I mean, this is an important program. These are people who have been imprisoned, get out of prison. It's been,
actually, no, and I'm sorry to correct the host of the show.
That's okay. I mean, that's
It emanated from Hope for Prisoners.
Right.
Hope for Prisoners is a Nevada program founded by a former inmate, John Ponder, and it is the most successful reentry program in the country. That is for people who are reentering society from federal, state, and local jails, okay? And services are provided because we have a number of people that are coming back into our communities that have spent time in jail, and we need to provide for them. We need to get them jobs. We want them to be productive.
and keep them from returning.
Yes.
Yes.
But about 2 or 3 years ago, a little light bulb went off in my head, and I said, why are we waiting until people are returning from prisons and jails to provide them with necessary services? So I created Hope for Second Chances. What that does is it offers the same services that are offered to reentry people pre-entry. It is the first pre-entry program to use reentry services in the country.
So how does it work? What is the difference between the pre-entry and the reentry?
So if there are people that are on the border of whether they should or should not go to prison, some people should go to prison. If you commit a violent offense, you commit a murder, a rape, some armed robberies, you're going to probably go to prison. But there are some borderline cases. Maybe they should or shouldn't go to prison. And what do we get out of sending somebody to prison for 2 or 3 years? They don't come back any more productive. So if there's somebody that is on that borderline that needs services, that can benefit from services, we offer them a chance. That's the Hope for Second Chances program, where they will plead guilty, they'll be on probation, and as a condition of probation, they have to complete the Hope for Second Chances program, which is the Hope for Prisoners vast services. And if they complete the program and stay out of trouble, they avoid going to prison.
In lieu of going to prison.
Yes.
How is that different than your other program, this Project Redirect?
Project Redirect is a pre-charge diversion program. Okay, so what I was just talking about are people that have been charged with crimes. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of low-level nonviolent offenders that by the time their case works through the system in the ordinary fashion, it's 6 to 12 to 18 months before their case is resolved. They don't get any services during this period of time. We said, wait a minute, shouldn't we be getting these people some services, whether it be alcohol treatment, drug treatment, mental health treatment, up front? So we created Project Redirect, which if they are assessed and they qualify and they complete a program of treatment and they stay out of trouble, their case is diverted out of the system so we don't even file charges. Again, those are for the non-violent, low-level offenders.
Drug possession being...
Yes, well, a lot of the drug
typical,
possession cases are resolved without even this kind of approach. But a lot of the mid-level programs. Now, if there's restitution, they have to pay restitution. If there's a victim that suffered a monetary loss, they have to pay that restitution. But the low-level nonviolent offenders that would take 6 to 12 to 18 months to have their case resolved is resolved in just 3 to 6 months. And they're getting the services they need.
How much cooperation do you need when you create these programs? Obviously, you need judges to get on board, public defenders, criminal defense lawyers, and you need the judicial system and to get on board, right?
Well, we hope to have them on board. Yeah. The programs we've been talking about are Clark County District Attorney created, and it's not a novel thing. These pre-charge diversion programs are used by the justice systems throughout the country. But yes, we need to educate the judges, let them know of the availability of these programs, and they've been successful. And the judges and the public defenders and the private lawyers are on board because it helps the right people get the help they need. But I want to emphasize that this is not for everybody, these diversion programs. You commit serious crimes. I have a homicide team, I have a gun team, I have a gang team that target the violent offenders that should be put in prison.
Right. And that's a challenge, deciding, who should go and who shouldn't go, who can be rehabilitative, or rehabilitative for lack of a better term. But I wanted to ask you about, you have, it's amazing, you have 700 employees in the district attorney's office, probably the largest law firm.
It is about 170 lawyers.
170 lawyers.
So it is the largest law firm in the state of Nevada.
Handle over 100,000 cases annually. So I have a very small firm. I know how much work goes into hiring one attorney. You have that many attorneys in the office. Are you running into some of the same problems that's happening everywhere around the country? It's difficult to get qualified people hired, particularly attorneys.
Yes and no. A lot of people want to work in the district attorney's office. Our office is unique as compared to other DA's offices throughout the country. Our lawyers are handling felony cases right away. They're doing jury trials within the first year. So the Clark County DA's office is a place where a lot of people want to start their careers.
They want to get into court. They want to
they
get
want
trial
to do. We're talking about
Right.
lawyers that have egos. A lot of them want to do trial work, and trial work is fun. I did it for 40 years, if you will. But also, yes, we are facing some of the same problems. The numbers of people that apply are down. It's competitive out there. The private sector can sometimes pay more than the government. But it's an attractive place to work, and we recruit generally once a year. And I have great people that work for me. I'm so proud of not just the lawyers, the people that come in, the clerks, the secretaries, the staffers, because they make this engine run. I am the figurehead. I'm very involved on a day-to-day basis. A saying I have is, if you read about it in the newspaper or see it on TV, I'm involved. But that's 1% of the cases. You mentioned 100,000 cases. I get involved in maybe 50 to 100 a year, the big ones.
Right. And the office, look, you need bilingual, and more than that, you need multilingual people, right? I mean, the Asian community, the Latino community. I mean, you need a lot of resources.
Yes, and I want our office as much as possible to reflect our community. The Latino community is 1/3 or more of our population. The African American community, the Asian community. So I'm always looking for people of color, whether it be black, brown, whatever, to come into our office because I want our office to be a reflection of the community. And those are challenges. We're not getting enough people from those backgrounds to apply.
I noticed lately in a lot of these judicial races, there's a lot of district attorneys and public defenders that run to become judges. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a pretty good job being a judge. You get a new first name. My wife is a former judge, as you may know, Jackie Glass. And I kid people all the time that when you become a judge, you get a new first name. It's Judge. It's a prestigious position. You do a lot of good work as a judge. You make tough decisions. So I think it's a very much sought-after position.
Yeah. And those people in the DA's office and in the public defender's office, they're appearing in front of these judges day in and day out, so they're really familiar with what the job entails.
They're qualified because a judge obviously runs a courtroom, so if you've got public defenders and DAs that are in the courtrooms all the time, they're very qualified, many of them.
You mentioned your wife, so let me bring that up.
Okay.
Your wife, Jackie Glass, a former district court judge, among other things, famous for sentencing O.J. Simpson.
Who? Never heard of him.
As well as being a judge on TV for a while. And you have two remarkable daughters. One is an attorney here in Clark County. The other is now a movie star, right, and a comedian in L.A., and was just on Family Feud a week or so ago.
Celebrity Family Feud,
Celebrity Family Feud with Johnny Knoxville?
No. Celebrity Family Feud was with Steve Harvey, the host.
Right.
But she was on the show with stars from the Jackass Forever movie.
Correct.
Johnny Knoxville and others.
Right.
Yes. Ed, Jackie and I, we've been married approaching 38 years. We're very proud of both our daughters, Rachel and Rebecca. Rebecca is a successful attorney here in town, and Rachel, like you said, is a stand-up comic, and now she's getting into the movie and television industry. We're both very lucky, Jackie and I.
And how do you balance that with, I mean, your job is enormously complicated and time-consuming. I mean, you know, I'm sure you get calls 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
I do.
Right.
24/7, 7 days a week.
Right. I mean, so balancing that has got to be difficult. I mean, you have a very, very prominent family. You know, a lot of women in your life. You know, it takes a lot of work, Steve.
You know, Ed, I don't know that my job is that much more difficult than a lot of other people's jobs. Okay, I get up in the morning, I get dressed, I go to work, I come home, just like everybody else. But how do I balance it? 3 Labradoodles help a lot. We're real big dog people, and you know, our kids are grown and they're out of the house, and I just love our Labradoodles. It takes my mind away from work. I'm a big exercise fanatic. I have an electric bike, and I'm riding 2 or 3 times a week. I love it. I go to the gym, I work out. I think that's the balance you talk about. You know, you have to leave work at work as much as you can, and I think that's the secret.
Let's talk about the politics for a moment. We have an election coming up November 8th. You were in. You had a primary opponent that you handedly defeated. Now you're running in the general election. This is your 3rd time running after being appointed to the DA.
In 2012, right. And then I ran in 14 successfully, 18 and successfully, and now 2022. Yes.
Prior to that, you were on the city council for a number of years, so you've been involved in the political side of this. Obviously, there's a significant difference politically, I would think, between the city council position and the DA's position, right?
Oh, huge.
For
well,
instance,
city council was considered part-time, and I was 1 vote of 7. We had the mayor plus 6 city council folks, okay? So I only had 1 vote. As the district attorney, I am the vote. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's a lot of pressure. I have to make difficult decisions almost on a daily basis, Ed. It's a much more involved job being the district attorney. As you said, managing 700 employees, and I've got great people that on the day-to-day that they help me manage. But the difficult cases we have, you know, we have a lot of high-profile murder cases, a lot of high-profile felony DUI cases, people that are driving impaired that cause injury or death. Those are terrible, terrible cases. So it's a difficult job, but I just try and do my best, and I decide cases and I decide things based upon, you know, what's right and what's justice. And I'm too old to let politics get in the way. I sleep at night because I make decisions, and I'm a collaborative type of guy. I have really good assistant district attorneys in all 4 of my divisions. So whenever we have to make some of those difficult decisions, I get the group together. We invite defense counsel oftentimes to come in and tell us, you know, their version, their side of the story. And then I just make the best call I can, and that's what I do.
One of those 4 units you have talked about is the gang unit. Are we having a gang problem still in Vegas?
Every major city has a lot of gang members, and we're no different. So I have a team of 5 lawyers that prosecute gang cases. I have a gun team of 5 or 6 lawyers that prosecute just gun cases.
Gun cases being what? People buying guns, using guns?
No, using guns. We're talking about armed robberies,
right.
Or if you're a felon, you're not allowed to possess a weapon, so ex-felon in possession of firearm. But mainly robberies and shootings. You know, a lot of times the shootings occur where if somebody dies, it's a homicide. If somebody doesn't die, it can be a robbery or an attempt murder. So I've got fantastic lawyers that work these cases.
In addition to doing the criminal aspect that's required of the DA's office, you also have a civil department. What do they do?
I have a civil division of about 12 to 15 lawyers that represent the county in all facets. If the county is sued, And the county is a target, so oftentimes people are suing the county. They represent the county. And they also give legal advice to all the various county departments. And then I have a juvenile division of about 30 plus lawyers that handle the delinquency cases. Those are juveniles that are charged with crimes. And then the child abuse and neglect cases. And then the fourth division, other than my criminal division, is my family support division. And a lot of people don't realize that the DA's office has a family support division that collects unpaid child support. And I'll quickly give you an example. People get married, have kids, get divorced, and somebody's not paying child support. Well, if you can afford a lawyer, you hire a lawyer and you take that person to court to enforce the child support orders. A lot of people can't afford lawyers. Lawyers are expensive. So we have a family support division where people can come, and our office then represents the people to enforce the child support orders. And I have 15 lawyers and 250 staffers in the family support division, and we collect on the average of about $130 million a year. And 85% of that money goes to the Clark County families. And we are now, I think, 7th in the country as far as our federal performance measures. That's the family support division. A lot of people don't even realize that the DA's office does those things.
Yeah. And so giving advice to all the different divisions in the county, zoning, liquor, I mean, some of those are very complicated cases.
They are, and they're important.
Right.
We got businesses that depend on their licenses to run a business. Yes.
When you look at what's going on in Clark County, southern Nevada, is crime worse today than it was when you first got into the DA's office? What's your read on this?
No, I don't think crime is worse. I think that many more high-profile cases are reported. Okay, we've got a very aggressive media, which is a good thing. Almost daily, I'm receiving media inquiries. So I don't think crime is up. There's certain categories. Some of the property crimes are up. The murder rate is not good this last year and a half, but overall crime is down.
Do you have a hypothesis on why the murder rate is not good?
I think part of it is as a result of the pandemic. People are suffering out there, whether it be alcohol, drugs, mental health. There's a number of crimes of opportunity. But Metro has, I think, a 94% solvability rate. Henderson does a good job, North Las Vegas does a good job, but Metro is the primary law enforcement police agency in Clark County, and they solve 94% of homicides. That's an incredible percentage, one of the highest in the country. My office works on a daily basis with Metro's homicide guys because sometimes they need legal advice from us, and so my homicide team is very busy. I'd like to have 10 more lawyers on that team if I could.
And in order to get those lawyers, then it's a matter of, where do you get funded? You get funded from the
county.
From
and the county's been good. They just gave us some new lawyers this last budget cycle. But there's never enough. I'd like to have more lawyers. I'd like to have more judges, more defense lawyers. But, it's a resource issue. No, I think we do a pretty darn good job here in Clark County in our criminal justice system. We're not perfect. But most of the bad guys get caught and most of the bad guys get punished appropriately.
You were really handicapped during the pandemic in trying to get some of these cases through the court system, right? I mean, jury trials stopped.
90% of the justice system shut down. Now, we couldn't shut down the in custodies. I mean, the police didn't stop arresting people. And if you're in custody, you have a right to, be in court and to go to trial. So even though we stopped doing jury trials for about 6 months, that caused a bit of a backlog 2 years ago. But we're through with the backlog, and we're back to normal. And we've created some new rules. We now have settlement conferences in criminal cases, which help move cases. So we're pretty much back to normal.
I wanted to ask you, in some cities, they've kind of changed the bail system. is it New York being?
Well, there's
the
a number of
primary
cities
one?
that have,
Yeah.
have either changed or modified in some way their bail
Yeah,
system.
what's your opinion of that? And
Well,
explain what the
yeah.
issue is. Now, if you don't have to make cash bail, or
Well,
in some of these cities?
here's my position on bail, and I've said this publicly many times. I would like Clark County to move to the system that the federal government has. There's a determination whether or not you're a flight risk or danger to the community. And a judge makes that determination after assessing everything. And if you're a flight risk or danger to the community, you're detained. But if you're not, and the vast majority of people are not either a flight risk or danger to the community, you're released with certain conditions. And they don't necessarily have to be cash bail. We have electronic monitoring. We have low, medium, and high risk levels. So I'm of the opinion that if you're either a danger or a flight risk, you should be held in custody. But if not, you should be released with certain conditions.
Great. And when you look back upon your term as DA and you're entering potentially into a new term, what is your goal?
My goal is to, like I said earlier in the show, Ed, to number one, provide the best public safety we can. We're focusing on the violent criminals. We're focusing on the repeat offenders. We're getting a couple of new lawyers in the next few months. We just got 6. We're going to get a few more. I may create a target team where this team targets certain individuals that deserve to be targeted. The vehicular crimes are just unacceptable. You know, too many impaired drivers. I'd like to get more public relations about that. I'd like the private sector to get involved in talking about how impaired drivers shouldn't drive, impaired people shouldn't drive.
Yeah, it's a big issue.
It's a terrible issue.
Hey, these issues are important to you. November 8th, get out there and vote. You know, we got to keep our community safe, and we need guys like Steve Wolfson in the DA's office. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Thanks.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.